Well, hello, Quest. Wanted to bring some things to you today just as we wrap up this week and head towards Sunday. But we've been in this process of addressing on Sundays, outside of the box, what does it mean or look like to be a follower of Jesus? We're talking about really the term discipleship or being a follower of Christ. And so I want to go there a little bit deeper. But today what I wanted to do was bring a couple of thoughts to you that are recorded really well in a book by a guy named John Stott. It's called The Radical Disciple. And I think he does a really good job, and I don't recommend books very often to people, mainly not because there are not a lot of great books, but mainly because most people don't have a lot of time to read extra things. But when I find a book that I think is really good, thought-provoking, and more bite-sized. So this book, The Radical Disciple, is a little bit smaller, a little bit shorter. It's very doable, and it's broken really into 8 sections addressing things. So it's called The Radical Disciple, Some Neglected Aspects of Our Calling. John Stott is probably one of the most influential Christian leaders in the world in the last 100 years. He may be one of the most influential people in the world in the last 100 years as he ministered in England primarily, but really was a worldwide Christian leader. But as he wrote this book, it seemed like there were some things in there. And so those 8 aspects that are often neglected as being a follower of Jesus were these 8. First was non-conformity, meaning the issue of being a follower of Jesus is to not be conformed to this world, but to be transformed. And so they're really taking a look at our own lives and how we so easily become conformed to this world. And knowing that we're called to be radically different and to be more like Christ. And that's really the second one, is don't be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of our mind that we would be more like Christ in the way we live. And that's really the issue of it's a person to be, not a project, but it's to be more like Him. And there is plenty of room for all of our personalities inside the personality of Christ, but the character of Christ is what is really the issue. And the third thing he talked about is maturity. Often we get so busy doing life, and there's kind of a production level of being a Christian. But it's really about maturity, growing up, becoming more mature. And we get so stuck sometimes in the petty things of the way we live. He calls us to maturity. And I think during this pandemic and the social chaos and the political wrangling that we've faced, people have often retreated to the petty immaturities. And so we're called to maturity. The fourth thing that he talks about is creation care. The fact that we are called to be caretakers of the world that he left and all of his creation. Not only nature, but that's a big part of it, but each other. The creation of the human race and our responsibility to care for that and for people and for the things and for nature. The fifth thing he talks about is simplicity. That we get so complex sometimes. And we need to boil things back down to their core issues. In the simplicity of life, sometimes we get so busy doing so many things, and life gets so complicated. How can we shrink it back to its simplicity and living out of that and almost being very peaceful people in the midst of the chaos of the world? The sixth thing he talks about is balance. Having real balance in life. We get so imbalanced so easily. It's a really great chapter. It's a short chapter. The seventh thing he talks about is dependence, understanding that we live in dependence on God Himself, and there is this unique dependence we have on one another, maybe better described as an interdependence that we have with each other. And that's part of life. And when we become isolated and independent, we really don't do well. We were designed to live in dependence on God and interdependence with one another. And the last thing is death. And what he means by death is the fact that We are designed to die to self and live for Christ. The surrender of our lives, which is really the theme that we've been talking about, is being a disciple as a surrendered follower of the glorious Christ. And to do that, we have to die to self. It doesn't work if we're really running our own lives, but slapping this title on top that I'm a Christian. We do so many things in the name of Christ that are not like Christ at all. We have to die to self and live to Him. And this is this radical disciple that John Stott talks about. So let me just encourage you, maybe pick up this book. It's very doable. It's a very excellent resource. So as we continue, I want to encourage you to be that surrendered follower of the glorious Christ. All right? Love you guys. Take care. We'll see you soon.